Hey everybody, this is your professor Rodney Figueroa from M160. Um, I've got a bit of a sore throat. I've been teaching live on location at the other place that I'm currently working at, and that was a double class yesterday, so my voice is kind of done for. Uh, so I'm going to be wearing the headset today, and hopefully that'll be okay for what we need for today. So today is going to be focused around covering the new section of what we have this week. We're going to bid adieu to the physics properties just for a while. Again, being the intro class, there's still a bunch of things that we need to cover, including things like blueprints and other elements that are available in the Unreal Engine. But as we're covering it on a week-by-week basis and pushing things to other weeks if we run out of time, that's kind of the order for these particular classes this week. Not a super dense class today. We're going to focus on one element today. We're going to focus on the post-process volume, and we're going to focus on demystifying the post-process volume. Um, I've got some examples for you to start out with, and then we are going to do a dive into the post-process volume. We're going to look at some of the key settings for what it's supposed to do, when to use it, how to use it, why you would want to use it. We're going to look at lens and film effects, things that you can add to your projects in order to give them a more cinematic or game feel, or even I've got it planned right now. I've spent a little bit of time putting it together, but I'm probably going to do a demo of a cell shader, or at least a type of cell shader. Cell shader math is either a material or it's in the post-process volume, but it typically is a combination of both. Uh, I don't really have the time in a single session to build out a full cell shader that is going to, hi Jade, that is going to be ideal for what a game would want to rely on. But since a lot of people last time I had to do this were playing Breath of the Wild and they really enjoy Breath of the Wild, I'm going to focus on making something that looks somewhat similar with a little bit of overhang so that we can make some changes, as well as talking about things like film effects and other lens effects. We're going to talk about tone mapping. The tone mapper is good for changing the process of shadows. We're going to talk about LUTs or LUTs, lookup tables is what they're called, and how they work in the post-process volume. We're also going to cover some materials for uh, basically materials for UI, but just kind of rendering stylization through the post-process volume. And also we're going to talk about some use cases for these elements, and then we're going to assign some homework, which is basically going to be a post-process playground, is what I call. That's going to give you guys a lot of room to make, at the very least, 2 or 3 of the demos that we're going to be covering today. There's a lot of resources out there to make your own. I'm going to provide some LUTs, but essentially what you guys are going to have is you guys are going to be making modifications to a scene using the post-process volume, and using the post-process volume is going to allow you to make essentially what you want visually as far as the post-process is concerned. Now I know that the common wisdom has been to use it just to turn off the adaptive eye, the auto exposure, right? And I'm sure most of you guys and gals have been using it to do that because the auto exposure isn't necessarily the best effect that we have for Unreal Engine. Um, and technically it makes lighting a little bit more difficult to actually do. But I'm here to tell you now that while we have been doing that for the last few weeks, it's time to demystify the post-process volume and start to understand what it's going to do from a visual effects standpoint. It is predominantly responsible for what the look and feel of the game is going to have. It is kind of our lever for changing what the game looks like and what is going to happen throughout the visual aspects of the game, as well as being able to understand that there is some ability to script some materials and call a post-process volume and blueprint script and whatnot. That's a little bit beyond the scope of this particular demo, but nonetheless, it's still going to be a useful tool to understand from here going forward. Now, I don't expect everybody to leave this class automatically understanding how the post-process volume works. The post-process volume is what a lot of people have referred to in the past as a giant switchboard. For anybody here who ever has made music or who has ever sat in front of a switchboard, it's basically every possible option that you can control with the camera related to the engine that is not inherently called through a tilde command or a script command or anything. It allows us to change a lot about how the engine runs, not just in terms of just performance, but in a visual effect. And it has its own performance cost, which we'll look at when we get a chance to do so. But what you need to understand is the post-process volume is, by and large, the means by which we affect the way that the visual world is represented to the camera. And by using the post-process volume, we inherently take up a cost, but is almost necessary. And in fact, it basically is necessary and mandatory to use it from a visual effects perspective when you are working inside of Unreal Engine. So, let's go ahead and review. We're going to do a quick little overview. We're going to look at some content samples. We're going to look at the post-process volumes, key settings, and then, kind of how it works as a whole, top-down look. We're going to look at lens and film effects. We're going to do some tone mapping. We're going to look up LUTs, and I have some LUTs. I'll call them LUTs, but I have some for you. Just so you can play around with them. We're going to talk materials for UI, some stylization, and a use case scenario. And I'm going to build something for the demo. So, with nothing else planned, I think we're going to go ahead and hop on into it. As far as the class is concerned, I need to get caught up on some of the grading. Most people still have some stuff that's submitted that I haven't graded from a week ago. I'll take care of that. That's on me. It's been a hectic midterm for most of the 162 class, so they had a pretty big project that was due that they were working on for 5 weeks, a level design for their first attempt to make a level with all the stuff that I've been covering. Yes, we will work on a level here, but just kind of like a very top-down experience. They had like the full-on mapping and building it out and testing it and checking to see if it has any fun gameplay stuff, and then populating it and then lighting it, and then if they had time, an art pass. You guys will do more or less the same in the second class. That's just kind of how it is. Oh, as a general announcement, I do have to say that I have received the schedule, at least tentatively, for next semester. And currently it seems like there is no intermediate class scheduled for next semester. That's just kind of the way that it is. It's not because you guys are interested, but because they are tentatively unsure how many people are going to continue onwards to the intermediate class. And so when those situations pop up, it might be worth your time to either talk to the department head, which is Carlos Toth, or at least explain your vested interest in continuing the course. Not necessarily because I want you guys to be here. Obviously, I do. I like you guys, and I want to spend more time covering the stuff that I want to cover and spend more time in the intermediate class and whatnot, since this is the intro class. And I like both classes equally, but for different reasons, right? But currently, as I said, there's no scheduled intermediate class for next semester, which means that unless something changes as far as I can tell, or there's enough vested interest to keep the next class scheduled, I believe there's an hour or credit limitation. I don't understand kind of how it works, but all I know is it's currently not scheduled. Only another beginner class and an intermediate class is scheduled for the spring session, which is going to then mean that by the time you guys are back for the what is it, not the summer session, is it the fall session, I think? I'd have to look it up. You guys would get a double class, essentially. You guys would have a second beginner class, and you guys would be your own class, and you'd have like a very large group of people. It's a system that works for us. It's a system that's given us a lot of leeway in making sure that the class has a significant amount of people that you guys can learn from each other. And not only that, we're going to be back in person. I'm already scheduled back in person for the next spring. Yeah, that's just kind of the way that it is. If you have any questions about the schedule, go ahead and check the academic calendar for Mesa. That has all the start dates and whatnot. That's my cat scratching her ear. And that'll answer a lot of scheduling questions about when things are going to happen and whatnot. But again, just to clear that up, It looks like the intermediate class is not scheduled for next semester. I think that's just how the course matrix is going to work, but the following semester I will be scheduled for it, and it will likely be the section after you guys and you guys taking the intermediate course, which is similar to what is happening to this intermediate course right now. All right. If there's any questions about that, obviously, talk to me. I'll move all that stuff to my higher ups, and then we'll have a discussion based on how we can make this easier for you guys or better. But that said, let's go ahead and hop into the post-process volume. We're going to demystify it the best as we can. We'll talk about each section, talk about what each section does and what you can do with it, and then we'll go from there. All right? I'll see you guys in the next video.